everyone, it's Cass. Welcome back to my channel, What Cass Read. Today I am going to bring you a book haul that I feel like I'm going to call my mid-year book haul. This is basically all the books that I have bought since January. I didn't post really anything, and I actually haven't been buying that much stuff. But as you can see that there are a good number of books here, but they are books that I have bought basically from like February all the way up until June 1st. But I did want to say that, yeah, it feels kind of like weird to be talking about buying a bunch of books with everything that is going on with COVID, with everything that is going on with Black Lives Matter and George Floyd protesting. So I did make a donation to the American Civil Liberties Union. It feels weird to talk about spending money on these things, but I do put my money where my mouth is, and there have also been donations made to organizations that are supporting the cause right now. So let's just get started and talk about some of these books. Alright, the very first book that I have to showcase in this video, this is The Girl in Stars, written by Mark Lawrence. This is actually, like, if we're looking at the books that I have been looking forward to the most, this is my most anticipated new release of 2020 for the first half of the year. I do also want to listen to this book on audiobook because I really enjoyed the audiobook of Mark Lawrence's other trilogy that I've talked about nonstop on this channel, and that is the Book of the Ancestor trilogy, Red Sister, Grey Sister, Holy Sister. This is a spin-off new trilogy of his. This is called the Book of the Ice trilogy. So in the world that Red Sister takes place in, it is this planet that is covered in ice except for this spherical corridor where pretty much 99% of the civilization on this planet has been forced to live. And then the rest of the people on this planet live out on the ice and the ice tribes. So this is going to be following a new young female character who is a member of these ice tribes, and I'm very excited for that. There were some revelations made at the very end of Holy Sister, I'll just say that, about the nature of this planet, so I'm really interested to see if that also has something to do with this book too. It would be interesting to see if Mark Lawrence decided to make that tie-in and expand upon what we learned and found out at the very end of Holy Sister. The next new release of 2020 that I'm very excited for, this is Shortfall, written by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is book number 2 in the Founders series, and the first book was Foundry Side. I do actually have a whole review of that book on my channel. Shortfall, I wasn't initially going to pick up, to be honest. I really did enjoy Foundry Side. I gave that 4 out of 5 stars. We meet a young character and put together this like band of misfits who are, you know, working to avenge evil and pull off a great heist. So I was like, well, I feel like I got the story that I wanted out of that. I don't necessarily think I'm going to pick up the rest of the series. You'll hear me say that in like the wrap-up and the review of this book. Well, then I found out what Shortfall was going to be about, and I got very excited about it. There are these beings in this world that had a great impact on book number 1, and this book kind of centers around that whole plot line. We still have Sancha, we still have this magical technology of scribing, but I mostly picked this up because I'm really interested in the other things that are happening. This is a book number 2, which is why I can't really get into it. Speaking of book number 2s, this is Jade War, written by Fonda Lee. This is book number 2 of the Greenbone saga, the first book being Jade City, and I still owe you all a Jade City review because Jade City was the first 5-star read of 2020. Jade City is still one of the best books that I've read this year. I'm very excited about it. It's amazing urban fantasy, Asian fantasy, martial arts fantasy, mystical powers fantasy. It's all of that. So as the title suggests with this book number 2, war has broken out, and I'm pretty pumped to get back into the action. I don't know why I put this book off for so long. It's definitely because like I was in a reading slump for sure, but I also just want to get to some of the other books that I specifically said I was going to try and get to this year, so that's why this one hasn't happened yet. But I just don't think I can go a whole year without reading this book as well. These you definitely have Ashley from A Frolic Through Fiction, but originally Becca from Becca and the Books to blame for this purchase. This is Fortuna Sworn, written by KJ Sutton, and then this is book number 2, Endless Slumber. This is like a dark fae story. That's really all I know like going into it, but I watched both of Becca's and Ashley's vlogs when they were going through this whole journey of reading this book, and that was the reason why it made me like, okay, you're gonna pick this book up now. There's a lot of Fae stories, they kind of like pass me by as being like, okay, they're just okay. But the way that those two were like geeking out over this makes me pretty pumped for just some dark Fae action. And I am very sure that these are self-published books, so if you want to support self-published authors, go ahead and check this out. I'm pretty excited to begin that, and I really hope to begin it soon, actually. Well, this was a complete impulse buy. This is King of Scars, written by Leigh Bardugo. You're gonna see in my wrap-up that I did end up finishing the Grisha trilogy. And while I felt like the Grisha trilogy was good, it wasn't mind-blowing. I was introduced to a new character that instantly like skyrocketed to being one of my favorite characters this year, and that was of course Nikolai. This is book 1 of the Nikolai duology. I just finished Six of Crows. As I'm filming this, I finished Six of Crows yesterday, and I plan on reading Crooked Kingdom as well in the month of July, if I can get to it. So I haven't necessarily read the cover, haven't read what this book is about because I don't want to spoil myself for anything, even though I know that this is Nikolai's story, and that makes me very pumped. I also know that there's been some like mixed reviews about King of Scars because Nikolai was such a fan favorite character, and so I don't know if it's gonna be the same for me, where a lot of people had a lot of expectations going into this because they loved Nikolai for so long, since they loved the Grisha trilogy, and me just being new to this world. I don't know if I'm going to have that same feeling, so I'll be interested to see what I think of King of Scars. I actually have already read this book. This is Frost Heart, written by Jamie Littler. This is a middle grade novel that was brought to my attention because of Gavin from How to Train Your Dragon. This is a story about a young boy named Ash who grows up in this like frozen world. Gavin's like review of this says it's like a mixture of Frozen and How to Train Your Dragon, which is a really good description of this. So he grows up in this frozen world where singing is this really looked down upon magic, and he is a young boy who finds that he wants to sing all the time. He is also an orphan, so this is an orphan story, like a coming-of-age story with the orphan with the special powers. He goes on an adventure to find his parents. He is accompanied by a Yeti guardian, and honestly, one of the best tropes for me that I love the most is like a really surly guardian character, and the Yeti, perfect for that. Or when I first picked up this book, I was like, okay, this will be cute, because I was reading it for the OWLs. And you're getting a little bit of a wrap-up with this anyway, but I really enjoyed it. And after I put it down, I ended up thinking about this book a lot. So I'm really happy that I ended up picking up this book. It's also illustrated by Jamie Littler, so you get some really awesome illustrations in here too. Yeah, I'm actually really pumped for the next book, which comes out in October. So you'll see me pick that up as well. Okay, speaking of other self-published books, it is high time that I purchase this book. It is also high time that I try and read this book. This is The Sword of Kaigan, is how I am going to pronounce it. I actually have not heard anyone with like a pronunciation guide, so if anyone knows how to say it, Kaigan, written by M.L. Wang. There have been a ton of people who have talked about this book, and the thing that made me want to pick this book up finally, because I kept seeing a bunch of people talk about it, but it was Kitty G from Kitty G Books. She just finished up the SPFBO awards, and her pick was this book to like put it forward for judging, and this ended up winning. So that made me really interested in it, and it was one of her favorite reads of last year. There's a ton of people, Ashley from Don't Have a Degree in Reading, another one. I just keep seeing this book. Well, Daniel Green also did a review of this. So I've been thinking like Jade City and Jade War have been my like Asian fantasy salvation, but the way that people talk about the martial arts and the Asian representation in this book makes me pretty excited. So this is another self-published book haul book. This started off as a self-published book, and then it was picked up by Orbit. This is The Rage of Dragons, written by Evan Winter. This is another like fantasy book that has made its way through a lot of popular fantasy booktubers that I follow, but I was honestly just waiting for the paperback version of this book to come out before I picked it up. I don't quite know what it's about, other than it's epic fantasy, which is honestly like all I need to pick up a book. But I've seen this make the rounds among a lot of booktubers that I respect. So I'm pretty excited for this one. I knew this was a book that I wanted to have in my fantasy collection, and so we'll see when I get to this one. This book is Empire of Sand, written by Tasha Suri, and this is going to make a lot of people happy. I see Joss from Yogi with a Book. This was one of her like favorite reads, and then the second one is already out. I don't know what that one's about, but this is a desert fantasy, and last year really hit me hard with some good desert fantasy, and I want to pick back up into some of those stories, pick back up into a story like this. A young woman who I believe has like these powers among nomadic tribes that are not powers that are favorable amongst everybody else, so I think they're persecuted by the empire that they live in. I wish I could tell you more about this one, but the number of people who have hyped this book up this year have made me very excited for it. So again, it's it's a desert fantasy book that I definitely want to sink my teeth into. And then the final book of this book haul, I already talked about this in one of my videos. It was the stay-at-home book tag, but this is House of Earth and Blood, Crescent City, book number 1, written by Sarah J. Maas. Isn't it weird that it's called House of Earth and Blood, but Crescent City is like gigantic on here? Why is that? That was an odd choice. But this is Sarah J. Maas's like first adult novel. Again, I'm like showing my hand of like who I watch and the vlogs that I watch. This was definitely a Becca and the Books reading vlog purchase that I made because of watching them read this book and how stoked they were about this. When I talked about this book in the stay-at-home book tag, the prompt that I used for this book was like, what's a book that you bought because of the hype? What strikes me as interesting is this one, I've heard that this is also like urban fantasy, which I don't get urban fantasy vibes off of this cover. So this like whole thing is just kind of a mystery to me, and I hope to get to this one. I mean, this year. I would really like to like the books that I have purchased this year to read them this year, so we'll see if that ends up happening. But anyways, this is Sarah J. Maas's new book, House of Earth and Blood. I think I called it House of Blood and Salt or whatever. I totally messed up the name in the video. So there you have it. There was my book haul from like basically the whole first half of the year. Let me know if you've read any of these books down in the comment section below. Let me know what you thought of them, or if you have had them also on your radar and you're thinking about picking them up. Just let me know what you think. You can find me on my social media if you want. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, at whatcassread, the same as this channel, so it should be super easy for you to find. My Goodreads link, that is always listed down below. And of course, you know how these videos end. I'll talk to you later. Bye.